Well, God bless you richly. Welcome back to the Bishop's Corner. I'll be your host for tonight. My name is Reverend Dr. Herbert N. Scott, the Chief Prelate of the Liberty Hall Cathedral of Praise right here in the heart of Brooklyn. And certainly we must thank God for the visionary of the Bishop's Corner, our friend, Dr. Phil. Philip Reed, who is affectionately known as Dr. Phil. Well, tonight we have a very, very special program for you tonight, and we have some fantastic people that's on the panel. First of all, we want to thank God for the Right Reverend Dr. Heather Francis that is with us tonight. Can we make her feel welcome? Woman of God, certainly a pleasure having you on tonight. Next, we have the delightful Reverend Dr. Dolores Ben that's with us tonight. Dr. Ben, always indeed a pleasure, young lady. Next, we're going up north. Bishop Dr. Neville Wolliston is in the house, and certainly, man of God, it's always a pleasure, and we thank God for your wisdom that you will impart to us. Next, we have Pastor Richard Mackenzie Jr. Pastor Richard Mackenzie Jr. from Brooklyn, always a pleasure indeed, young man. And certainly tonight we are blessed to have on the Bishop's Corner a mental health strategist. Her name is Michelle Dickinson, her first time on. And certainly, Michelle, we thank God for you tonight and for the wisdom that I'm sure that you will be imparting to all of us. Well, tonight we are dealing with pastors' mental health. Pastors' mental health. Is your pastor about to burn out? Is your pastor about to burn out? So many things happen to pastors. I remember some time back, a little boy was playing with a quarter in his hands, just playing with it. And all of a sudden, he put that quarter in his mouth and he was gagging and gasping for breath. And they could not, they did everything. They turned the boy upside down. They shook him and they threw him up in the air, but that quarter was stuck right here in his throat. All of a sudden, the gentleman, the man, went to this church, had an inspirational thing just came to him. And he said, you know what? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take him to pastor because pastor knows how to get money out of anybody. My thing is this, is it just about the money? What is it? What is it? So many pastors are burning out. What is it? Now I'm going to ask Michelle to explain to us what really is burnout and the signs that a person is burning out. Michelle, it's in your hands.
For sure. Thank you so much, Bishop Scott. I'm thrilled to be here with you all. Burnout is happening nationwide in every industry. And as you all have been sharing with me, it is affecting our religious leaders as well. Burnout in and of itself is a form of pure exhaustion. It's caused by constantly feeling swamped or just completely overwhelmed. It helps us, there's a certain level of stress that's good in our lives, but when we have compounded stress over a long period of time, it's not. And we feel it physically and we feel it mentally. When we're burned out, we're unable to keep up with life's demands. There's a lot of self-doubt that we struggle with, hopelessness, increasingly cynical and a negative outlook. We don't want to be that way, but when we're burned out, that's essentially what happens. And then decrease satisfaction and sense of accomplishment. Even though you're able to do and get behind the work that you have to do, you're not really fulfilled in it anymore because you're so depleted. So that's just the foundation of burnout.
I would like to ask the panel, because everyone really on the panel really is indeed a pastor. I believe that Dr. Ben, she's married to a bishop, so what really affects the bishop really to some degree affects her. And let me put this question to the panel. What would you say are some of the stressful situations that pastoring really encounter? The stressful situations, because all of you, I'm sure you have been through them. So what would you say are these stressful situations that we as pastors do have to go through? Pastor Richard McKenzie.
It's so, oh, first and foremost, my apologies. God bless you, Bishop.
Bless you.
God bless each and every one of you too. Our special guest tonight, Michelle, God bless each and every one. There's so many different things that we can say in terms of this specific question. For me personally, I would say that some of the things that stress me specifically out or pastors out, trying to do too many things at the same time, wearing too many hats, not delegating, and therefore trying to take on too many responsibilities, lofty expectations that you're trying to meet. For me personally, being bivocational, it's very stressful as well. And being bivocational plus in Bible school at the same time, it's a lot. So there's a lot that we as pastors and then people, the very various personalities and desires and wants and needs that need to be fulfilled, that you have to remember, as much as you have a desire, and our desire is to help, our desire is to feed, our desire is to be there for as many people as we can, but we cannot give if we have nothing in our tank to give. Right now, gas prices are through the roof. And sometime this morning, I turned on my car and I'm driving. I'm like, what is that like? I didn't realize that I had no gas in my car. I had to go and fill it up. I never do that. So in the natural, so in the spiritual, sometimes we're driving on E and the light is on, and some of us don't even realize that the light is on. So we have to be careful. You cannot draw from an empty well. So there's so many different things as pastors that, can really just stress us out or just take so much from us.
Pastor McKenzie, can I ask you, as you mentioned that, or maybe Michelle can answer, do you think it's to our detriment as pastors and leaders that we don't address the fact that, look, I'm tired, I'm on E, I'm burnt out? Do you think it's to our detriment?
Of course, absolutely, because it's going to affect us in so many different ways. Performance, if we're not able to perform on one end, it's going to affect us in so many different ends. And also physically, you can't, how are we going to give to the individuals that we have been placed to lead over if we're not even physically here to do it? So many pastors are in the hospital dealing with strokes, dealing with hypertension, all these various things that are going on in their body, simply because they never took a step back to say, wait a minute, I can't do everything at the same time. I'm doing too much. I'm running on E. And a lot of times we say, you know what? There's a scripture that I always say, young man, I call upon you because you're strong. Yeah, you're right. Young man, I call upon you.
We're not young anymore.
If you keep going at 100 miles an hour, it's not going to work out.
Pastor McKenzie, I'm sorry, I do agree with you. And speaking from a pastor's wife's perspective, I'm also a pastor, but being married to a bishop, it is stressful. Not only looking at my husband trying to balance between church and family, but the thing is, as a pastor's wife, you become the recipient of all the stress. Yeah. All the inadequate feelings that stress bring on, you are now the recipient of it, and yet still you're called upon to comfort, because when your husband comes home all stressed out, who is he turning to? You're the one who would say, it's going to be all right, let's pray about it. But then who comforts you? So therefore, you always feel the brunt, you bear the burden or the brunt of the stress that is faced by your husband. And then here come the children. If there are children in the home, that balance of the family, of the home, of church. And you love the church members, but every issue that affects them, they look to you to solve it. And they look to you to help them meet their needs. And it is stressful when you put yourself in that position to be able to do that.
Dr. Ben, I totally agree with you. Can I ask you real quick, what would you say to someone, a parishioner or whoever that would say, look, it comes with the job, it comes with the territory. It's kind of like if you're in the, you remember COVID when first started, I mean, frontline workers, I mean, they were the frontline workers. They were most exposed, mainly exposed to the virus. What do you say to someone who says, well, Bishop, it comes with the job. It's to be expected that you get stressed out or cussed out or beat up, whatever. What do you say?
Well, I'm grateful that you asked that question. I am a frontline worker, being a registered nurse myself. But being a nurse, the thing I would say to you is self-care. I've got to take care of myself first so that I would be able to take care of you. Let me use the analogy of the oxygen. When you're flying on that plane and that stewardess says, if the pressure should drop, you put the mask on yourself first,
Yes.
and then you help the person next to you if it's a child or someone who can't. When I first heard that, I thought that was so inhumane because I wanted to save the child. And I was really torn by it until I got a better understanding of what it really meant through investigation. And it was explained to me that if you were to put the oxygen on the child first, the child may be saved at that moment, but the child will die. Because if you as the adult die, there is no one to care for the child. But if you save yourself first, then you are there to assist the child. And I would transfer that to the ministry. We have got to take care of ourselves. I'm very aware that the era we grew up in church and the pastor was all in all. But as times have changed, we have got to change our mindset. And I'm not sure how we do it, but find ways and means to help our parishioners to see a different light.
Amen. Okay. So let me ask Bishop Wolliston, man of God, what would you say some of the stressful situations that you have encountered in ministry? I'm sure you've been through a lot.
How much time we got, Bishop? Like Pastor Mackenzie says, there's so many. One of the things that really gets to me is your parishioners will say, Bishop, you're doing too much. You're doing too much. But then you look at them and they ain't doing nothing. You know, they're not helping you. They're pointing out the fact. You know, I say to my leaders, don't bring me a problem if you don't have a solution, because all that means is now I've got to go find a solution to another problem that you just brought to my attention. You know, so you're bringing me a problem. I understand that. Do you have any solutions to that problem? Or do I have to now stop what I'm doing to go put this fire out or deal with this situation? So that's one of my, it's not so bad now, but that's just one of my biggest challenges. Bishop, you're doing too much, but then you're not helping. I think if our parishioners can be a little bit more empathetic and understanding that, look, it's just one person and he has a lot to do. Pastor Mackenzie talks about delegating and so forth and so on. And then you want things done a certain way. It's not that you're picky, but you have a way of excellence. You want things to be done in a good and perfect manner, if you will. So that can be challenging also.
Got you, Doc, got you. Okay, Pastor Heather Francis, woman of God, the things that stress you out as a pastor.
I would say that I have to piggyback. First of all, good evening, Bishop. Sorry, I didn't tell you good evening. God bless you. Thank you, Michelle, for coming on, and greeting to the rest of my co-laborers in ministry on the panel. There's so many stresses that a pastor has to deal with, but I would have to piggyback off of what our Bishop Wolliston mentioned, the lack of support when it comes to the criticism of what needs to be done, resolving conflict conflicts within the ministry, whether it be through inter-ministry departments, as well as you have to deal with family issues, you have to deal with marriage counseling, you have to deal with individual counseling, you have to deal, there's so many different areas that you have to deal with. Plus, you still have to do your regular everyday duties. And when you're busy as a pastor 5-6 days a week, like myself, and you find yourself doing something for ministry, busy for ministry 5-6 days a week, when do you really find time to do anything for yourself? You really don't. And so I think the mindset, as our Dr. Ben says, needs to be a bit different. I think the mindset of the body of Christ has to be different, and we have to humanize the pastor. I find that the attitude, let's say I'm a single pastor, by the way, of 2 children, and well, two adults, but they're still in college. And so that's a whole different can of worms that you have to deal with, on top of health issues. So how do you really deal with all of that when you have congregants who will say, "Oh, pastor, it's just the plan of the enemy. The devil wants to distract you from doing what you're supposed to do for God." So you keep going 5-6 days a week because it's the devil trying to stop you from doing what you have to do for God. And so you're burning the candle at both ends. You're leaving the hospital and you're doing what you have to do for God. And you're exhausted. You can't sleep, but you still have to do what you have to do because, pastor, it's the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Humanize your pastor. Your pastor is a human being that has to cook, clean, do laundry just like you. Their parents just like you. They have to care for their children just like you. And everything is not the devil. Some things are just life. And so I find that the biggest stresses in a pastor's life is not humanizing your pastor and realizing that they are a human being, and the access, the 24/7. When I don't answer my phone, people take it personal. People get offended. You're not answering my text. Pastor, what's going on? Well, believe it or not, I had to use the restroom. So I could not take your phone call. And I decided to stay in there and take a break. I mean, come on. We've got to humanize our pastors. Let's humanize our pastors because it's stressful when you don't feel like you're being treated as a human. And let's face it, as a pastor, yes, you are a shepherd and you have to take care of sheep, but look at the different personalities that you're dealing with as a shepherd with all of these different sheep. Look at the scenarios. You're dealing with all these different families who have different dynamics. Some of them have mental illness in the homes with their children. Some of them are dealing with, I have some families that are dealing with children who are addicts, and that's a big thing. And they expect me to answer the phone 5 days a week if they're having a crisis with their child. Pastor, he's drunk again. I need you to talk to him right now. I need you to stop doing what you're doing. I need you to pick up the phone. Matter of fact, Pastor, can you please come down here right now? I need you to get in your car and come down here. This is real talk. And before, I'll be honest with you, I would get in my car and I would drive and I would go. And lately I said, I'm going to drop down if I keep doing this. You cannot run for every single family. And they think they have you it's like pastor is on a remote control that they will press it and say, okay, pastor's coming. Okay, but pastor has to come for everybody, not just for you. And so it makes it difficult. You know, you get exhausted, you feel tired, you get a little irritable, and it may even reduce your level of empathy because now you're on this 100 when it comes to dealing with this, dealing with that, dealing with this, dealing with that. And then you're not getting any grace, but you have to give out all the grace in the world, but you're not supposed to have any. So that's just a touch, Bishop.
Don't forget those weekly sermons that you have to preach. That's
was just gonna say
also
that.
open up to criticism.
Oh, come on now.
So remember that when you stand up to preach, you have to be like Ezekiel to cause those dry bones to get up and run. Okay, so we have a lot to talk about. Dr. Ben, would you like to share something with us, young lady, as to some of the stressful situations that you as a young pastor have been through?
Oh, praise the Lord. For me, I find it's having to preach and deal with my children. Here's why. Being in the church, as you mentioned the word criticism, that's fine. They would criticize you, but then the church looks at your children and expect them to be young pastors. So they don't have the opportunity to be a child, to be a teenager, to do the stuff that teenagers do, and you always have to, as it were, be putting out fires. Well, your son did this and your daughter did this, and you're dealing and you're trying to balance and you're trying to be fair. So even as a young pastor, that was very, very challenging for me. And as Dr. Phil was talking early, don't call my baby ugly. That was one of the things he had said. And it's difficult when they begin to attack your children and your loved ones. You feel like a mama bear. So where your claws come out. So therefore, and then then that you're really stressed about it. So even as a female, dealing with preaching the word, dealing with the women, and women have something called estrogen that is, it is really, when you've got to deal with the different levels of female hormones that they present to you on a daily basis, and then trying to balance it off, that's where the stress comes in.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Would you believe that next week we have three funerals in our church next week, 3 funerals, and grief counseling. We have to go through that when it comes onto a church, navigating the compelling demands of a congregation. Some people are working, some people are not, so forth. So it's so many things. Now, before I should ask the main question and get Michelle weighing in, I just want you to tell me, what are the effects of burnout when a person's really burnt out? Do you, as the pastor, act the same? Do you avoid certain things or certain people? Do you become more open, or what? What are the effects of a person who's really burnt out?
I find pastors who are burnt out become irritable. They're angry. Before you can speak to them, and they'll be like, honey, it's going to be all right. Their approach is different. It is as though they are on a short fuse. Their reasoning capacity has greatly diminished. And those are some of the things I see, that you can tell they're stressed out. They don't smile as frequently as they did before. And, it's stressful. Pastors have great responsibility, but the aura that they give off, that peace that they have when they're under great stress, you don't feel that.
And would you say, woman of God, that sometimes we try to hide it? In other words, we're going through all the hell and we just pretend as if everything is fantastic? Because sometimes by showing your real feelings, you can send a shockwave through the congregation. So do we sometimes hide it?
You call that the mask. You put on the mask to come out. But if they were to see behind the mask, they would see the hurt and the pain and the struggle that you are going through to stand there and deliver the word. In spite of all the varying dilemmas you are facing, you are still feeding the sheep. Because if you don't put that mask on, Bishop, they would run.
Amen to that. Bishop Wolliston, man of God, how say you?
Yeah, I totally agree with Dr. Ben, Bishop. You try to be consistent, especially in your personality, and try not to show your anger and frustration. For me personally, it's just my wife that will see it, and some of my children, if they're really paying attention. But as far as the congregants, you try not to be somebody who you're not. You try to keep that pleasant personality. And yes, sometimes it's hard. It's very difficult. One of the things that I like best, especially in my circle, you tell me, oh, Bishop, that was a great sermon. That don't faze me. That is not important to me. I'm not saying it's not to deliver a good sermon is not important, but for you to say that, what I like, there are at least a couple of people in my church that every so often, Bishop, out of the blue, they'll come and say, Bishop, is there anything I can do for you? Anything that you'd like me to do? Bishop, that's like giving me $1 million. You know what that says? I care. And these are not even ministers. These are just regular
everyday people.
Joes. Bishop, is there anything I can do for you? Is there anything that you need? I mean, that's like a cool drink of water. That's like, yeah. And even if there's nothing that I need or they can even do for me, just to hear that, that's empathy. And that speaks volumes.
Beautiful. Pastor Mackenzie.
Before I say, can I ask a question to the panel? When was the last time somebody asked you if you're okay? I'm so serious.
Yeah.
We're expected to ask everybody else if they're okay. How are you feeling? How are you doing today? Is there anything that's troubling you? But when was the last time that you were really asked, are you okay? So with that, Bishop, you said something, and I agree with you. A lot of times within the confines of the church, we put on this mask. But the truth of the matter is sometimes people see straight through the facade. Because we can only hide it, but for so long. We can only hide what's going on the inside, but for so long. For me personally, I find myself that I'm an introvert, so I try to hold things on the inside, which is not healthy. We mentioned being irritable. Dr. Francis, you mentioned that as well. And sometimes we're irritable and we project on the wrong people. Project on the wrong people. And so it is, our wives feel the brunt of it. Our children feel the brunt of it. We're saying things to our wives and our children that we know we shouldn't be saying and we didn't even mean to say. And it's not because we have an issue with them per se, but it's because of what's going on in and around us. So, I mean, we want to keep it real tonight, right? We're not putting on a facade. So, for me, again, avoiding. Sometimes I avoid certain situations and avoid certain people because I just need my sanity. And it's a lot. It's a lot. So as I always tell people, I say it all the time. Those of you that want to be pastors, there's only 2 reasons why anybody should want to be a pastor. You're either called or you're crazy.
Can't be both.
Both.
Oh, crazy. Thank you, man of God. One thing, have you ever noticed that people that are working, something happens, they cannot go into work that particular day. The first thing they'll do, they'll call their boss. Can't make it to work. But have you noticed that with the church, a person may be sick, and some people purposely don't call the pastor, don't call no one, stay home for 2-3 weeks, and they're expecting a call from the pastor. Have you all ever experienced that? I'm sure you have. Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
That's how people are. And then they want to blame the church. The church don't have no love. But why is it that your boss, who you work for, as soon as you have a headache, you're calling him?
My God.
You're calling him. But now, when you have a headache, we're supposed to get that inspiration from God. Hallelujah. Because the headache, I feel it. The devil is a liar. Reverend Dr. Heather Francis, woman of God, how say you?
Honestly, I believe that the body keeps score of what the mind is not even saying.
Mm.
Because I have a good friend of mine that I hadn't heard from a very long time, and he's a bishop, and he had a stroke. And I had a conversation with him, and he said, Doc, nothing happened out of the ordinary. I'm a very healthy man, never been sick a day in my life. Had to deal with the normal stresses as any bishop or pastor does, and he really didn't see it coming. And so there was nothing unusual that happened. He was dealing with the regular everyday stresses of pastoring. However, and that's something I would love to hear from Michelle, because I really believe that the body is actually keeping score of what is going on, even with what you're not saying, but what your subconscious is dealing with, and the physiological makeup in your body and how that actually affects you overall. So I would say that your body ultimately will tell you when you're actually experiencing burnout, whether we listen or not, because even though he said he had no signals or no warning signs, there are signs to burnout, as we're talking about tonight. And it could be very little signals, not being able to sleep at night, not getting enough rest. And we know that lack of sleep and the irritability and all of that, your body is one huge computer, and everything is connected by millions and billions of neurons and all of these things that go on in your nervous system, and everything becomes affected by it. So I would honestly say, Bishop, that ultimately your body is keeping score. And one day your body is going to tell you what you think your mind doesn't know.
Oh, wow. That is so deep, woman of God. Amen to that. Now, before I should put the first question to Michelle, our expert on the line, one of the things I do know and understand is this: when a person is experiencing burnout, there's this withdrawal. You want to keep away from people. You just want to keep away from people, and especially avoiding certain aspect of the work. You've got some pastors that love to stand in the pulpit, but really sometimes when they really burn out, honestly, they don't even feel like preaching. They feel like a Jeremiah. I would not even preach, say anything in his name. Oh yes, not just that, but when a person sometimes is burnt out, you find that that person is hard to approach, becoming less approachable, and so forth. And these things do happen. Burnout causes family problems, as Pastor Mackenzie was saying. Sometimes, like you treat your family totally different, and it's as if what you are going through, you throw it on them, as if they are the ones who cause you to be going through this. Not just that, but you'll find that when a person is burnt out, now this is serious, you are more opened up to sin and coming short of his glory than any other time. So these are some things that we have to really be careful about. Now, we've said a lot, and this is where Michelle comes on in. The first question that I want to put to you, Michelle, is this: what should we be doing daily to preserve our brain balance and emotional well-being? Now, I believe that that's something I can't answer. So I'm going to ask you, please, to answer that for me.
I love what Reverend Francis just said about the body is going to tell us if we ignore, right? Our physical is always a manifestation of almost what our mind is dealing with. So the first thing I teach all day long is getting present to how you're doing every single day. We wake up in the morning and the physical parts of our body that ache remind us, hey, there you go. Your ankle hurts, or your leg still hurts, or, oh, my back is bothering me. And it gets our attention and has us pay attention to it. But we're not doing the same for our emotional well-being. And so that requires that we're checking in with ourselves every single day, because if we can recognize that we're not doing well, then we can take an action to feel better, right? A lot of the time, we just need someone we trust to just have a conversation with. We need to connect with someone that we love. We need to maybe go for a run or go to the gym, do something that can help us kind of get out of that funk we're in before it escalates. So I would say the first thing, first and foremost, is self-audit. The second thing is have someone you trust to talk to, because a lot of the times we ruminate in our minds far too long before we actually get it out. And when we do get it out, it sort of takes away the charge that it has when it's in our head. So when we can talk to someone about it, it dissipates a little bit better because you've actually expressed it and you've gotten it out. The other thing I want to mention that is so important, and we've sort of talked about this, we talked about it before we went on the air, and we talked about it here, is the impact of compounded stress and compounded exhaustion and burnout, right? What's really at stake here is your livelihood, what you do, you're here to make a difference and be a contribution to your family and to your congregations. So you have to get present to, if I ignore this, the ultimate negative impact can be present, right? We talked about heart disease, we talked about stroke, all of those things. Compounded stress is what kills. So it's okay to be a little bit selfish. It means taking care of yourself proactively, because the one thing I want to remind you of, stress is never going to go away. Somebody's not going to come to you and say, let me take that off your plate. And then you're going to go, oh, now I can take care of myself. We have to be a little selfish and say, I'm going to own daily things that I can do so that I feel better, right? Because your circumstances and waiting for your circumstances to change before you do something is not the answer. And you're going to lose valuable time thinking that that's going to happen. So tend to the garden of your mental health every single day. So that means maybe getting up 30 minutes in advance in the morning and doing something for you. That means, basic things. Am I getting enough sleep? We mentioned sleep, 8 hours of sleep, quality sleep. Are we getting good nutrition? Are we hydrated? Are we doing things for our physical body that we know is going to impact our emotional well-being? I'll stop there.
Okay. Let me also add something and say this too, that Brian Dobbs, he states that pastoring has one of the top 3 suicide rates of any profession. The top 3 suicidal rates of any profession. Just some years back when we were in South Africa, 54 of us, we heard that pastor in California, and this was about 3 years ago, with a mega church, over 2,000 people. Finance was not a problem. Everything seemed to be going well. And that young man just took his life. He was just, I believe, 41 years of age. Money was not a problem. Church was the building totally paid up for, and everything seems well. But there again, as you know, that there are some things you see on the surface. It's like when a person looks at what they call these things where you see a third on the ocean top. No, and 2/3 is beneath. What is it?
Iceberg.
Iceberg. That's it, an iceberg, where you see 1/3 and then 2/3 is beneath. There were some things that was in here that the people did not pick up on. And because of that, you find that suicide. Can you imagine a man of God committing suicide? Yes, he did. And people don't understand that 26% of pastors leave because of conflicts in the church. 13%, as it were. They say that, well, I'm a poor fit for this particular congregation, so let me leave. Okay, 17% leave because of ethical issues. 13% because of burnout. 10% because of finance. 8% because of illness. but yes, they walk out of the ministry. Now, let me say this, as pastors, what should we tell young fledglings that's just coming into the pastorate? Because there are some people who believe, just like I believed some years ago, once you can preach, you can articulate the word. That's really what pastoring is all about, being able to stand before congregation and give the word and give it in such a way. Yes, that is a part of it, but let me say this, ladies and gentlemen, that's the least of it. You can train a chimpanzee to do that. You can train a chimpanzee to do that. It is beyond that. And not just that, but remember now that, as Pastor Heather pointed out, that if we have 10 people in our church, we have 10 different mindsets, 10 different mindsets. Therefore, there are certain things I will never ever ask my congregation. Example, what color should I paint the church? What color should I paint the church? If you have 10 people, you may get 10 different responses. And some will even tell you that they went to bed last night and they dreamt and they saw blue. Oh, they saw blue. And Bishop, it's blue. There are some decisions that you have got to make for yourself. So then, gentlemen, let me ask you a question. Ladies, let me ask you a question. How do you personally handle stress? How do you personally handle stress? Now, you got to tell me, because whatever you tell me, I'm going to do it.
I'll be honest with you, Bishop. I tried. Go ahead, Pastor McKenzie.
No, please.
No, you go ahead, Bishop.
I'll be honest with you. I try to avoid it as much as I possibly can. Like Michelle says, it's not just going to go away. But what I do and what I try to tell folk is control what you can control, and what you can't, leave it alone. Control what you can control. If it decides it's going to snow in the next 5 minutes, there's nothing on God's earth I can do about it. I just got to prepare for the snow or the rain or the thunderstorm or what have you. So I handle it this way, Bishop. I try to control what I can control, and what I can't, I just leave it alone and keep it moving.
Thank you, young man. Thank you indeed. Okay, Pastor McKenzie, tell me the secret, sir. How do you, such a young, handsome, good-looking guy, handle stress?
He don't get stressed. He don't get stressed.
Hi. Ooh, that's funny. I agree with what Bishop Wolliston was saying. For me personally, also, I look for an outlet. So I used to play sports, so football was my outlet. Ain't got that anymore, but I work out, things to take your mind off of everything that's going on. Reading, I know Bishop Scott, you're a reader. For me personally, I work out, go to the gym, get on an exercise bike, just sweat, just try to take my mind off of it in the moment. Obviously, after you finish working out and you have to go right back to it, it's a temporary fix for a permanent, sometimes a long-term issue. But I find outlets, things to really take my mind off of it in the moment.
Okay, now let's go over to a woman of God who I know don't know what stress really is, and that's Dr. Dolores Ben, because she's got Bishop Ben beside her. Woman of God, how say you?
I honestly believe that life is a balance. And over the years, I have struggled. And when I say struggle, not in a negative connotation, but I've fought to maintain balance in our family. I was the one who said, we're going on a vacation. I'm the one who would book, whether we go to Jamaica, whether we go to the Caribbean, whether we went to Europe. I booked it. I came and I said, these are the days you will be out. And he said, what do you mean? I said, these are the days we're going on vacation. And we went on vacation. He didn't have a choice. And when the children became teenagers and they felt as though their father didn't belong to them, and they said this to me, they said, he's not our father, he's the people's pastor. And I sat and I had a conversation with my husband and I said, we got to do something. We came up with a family day, as crazy as it is. One day out of the week, we allocated it to the family. And on that evening, the kids would come from school. I would prepare, we made gourmet meals. You set the table. You made them feel really special. Bishop, we even cooked lobster and steak, and you set the table for them. And it was a time where cell phones were just coming in. We put everything away. We turned off the media. We spoke. We started to talk to the children, to de-stress everybody. So we talked, we played board games. Personally, I'm an outdoor person, so I go for walks. I enjoy nature. I'm an avid reader, but I like to walk. And I love the beach. So wherever possible, you would always find me. I go for a walk. Something bothers me, I'm out. I go for a brisk walk, and you see me talking to myself, but I'm talking it out. And I don't answer, I just talk to myself. And when I come back, I feel a lot better and more able to face this situation. So those are some of the strategies. One of them, self-care. I'm an avid believer in that. Vacation, it was a must. It wasn't if I could, it was you are going.
Dr. Ben, I just want you to know, young lady, that I love lobster. Just in case now, just in case, because every now and then I'm in South Carolina. So, but just in case.
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Thank you. Dr. Heather Francis, woman of God, how say you?
Well, I agree. I have to concur with Dr. Ben. Self-care. I force myself to take time for myself and to take care of me. And I think it's important for your congregation to see you as a pastor, particularly as a woman, to take care of yourself. You should look healthy, not just on the outside, but you should be healthy on the inside also. And they should see a healthy relationship between you and your family, not the facade, but the true relationship. And it takes work, and it is balance. So I do the same thing as far as spending time with my children. I do it individually, so that they can feel like they have a personal relationship with me. Because if you don't spend time with your children as a child of God or as a servant of God, there's somebody in the world that will. And they will give them the attention that they don't need. And so I've learned the hard way from being a recipient of being a BK, a bishop's kid, that when you put everything into your ministry and you neglect your children, unfortunately, there is a domino effect that it has. So I believe that we have to now set that example so that people who are coming up and they have the desire or the call on their life to be a pastor, they can see healthy pastors who will care for themselves and care for their families and their children and learn balance. But taking care of yourself, it's a lot of work, because you literally have to say, I'm not going to answer my phone today. I'm going to go and get a manicure, pedicure. I'm going to go and get a massage, and I'm going to do me. And church is not going anywhere, honey.
And Michelle, are we handling stress correctly?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I love everything that you guys are saying. It's so good. And it's so helpful when people share what works for them, because then we can say, maybe I'm going to try that on, I think we need to recognize the power of small incremental changes. We don't have to do big things. We can just adopt small incremental routine changes, and they'll make a big difference. Look at the power of 1 degree change in an airplane. Right? It could land in an entirely different destination just by taking little changes. So what I would recommend, have non-negotiables. Like, no matter what, this is what I'm going to do for me today. And there are boundaries that you put in place. It doesn't mean that you say no, you have to say no to everything, but it just means you have to say yes to you. And the other thing is, I think vacations are great. But I think too many of us, and women, we're guilty of this. Too many of us lean into vacations as the end all be all, to solve the problem of 6 months of compounded stress. And we women think a spa day is going to unravel us from 6 months of compounded stress. And it doesn't work that way. We always have to be thinking, okay, what is it that I'm doing every day to nurture myself so that I don't become depleted, right? What can I do? What do I know is going to help me feel good so I get to show up? So small changes, get up a half an hour early, do you for a half an hour, uninterrupted time, clear your head, little things.
Okay, great. Now I have a question that I want to put to the panel, and it's something that you really have to think about. And the question is this: when should a person quit pastoring? When should a person really quit pastoring?
It all depends, Bishop, if you're called or crazy.
Please go ahead.
If you're called, I think if you're called, it's a different dynamics as opposed to being hired, or you're just doing this because you're filling in or what have you. It's very hard to quit when you're called. Now, I do understand that there's a time as a senior pastor that you step aside. It doesn't mean that you quit. You can be in a different role as a mentor or an overseer as such. You don't have to be the lead pastor. So I think it's probably different for everybody, but I would think you never really quit. This is a call. This is a lifetime call, but you can quit preaching per se or pastoring per se, but you are in a different role. You talked about earlier about the young pastors coming up. What do we say to them? I say to every young pastor, get a coach, get a mentor. As great as Michael Jordan was, he had a coach. Tiger Woods had a coach. LeBron James had a coach. Muhammad Ali, as great as he was, didn't he have a coach?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you say to a person who will tell you this, that I've finished what God has called me to do? I've finished what God has called me to do. What do you say to a person who tells you that?
And what is that? Save the whole world?
Well, whatever it is, because
nobody's capable of doing that.
I came into pastoring and I finished what God has called me to do. What do you say to a person who comes with you with that line, why they are quitting the pastorate?
Can I respond?
Please, of course.
I think that if you get to the point where and please, I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but let's do it. I believe that if you claim that you are called to pastor, not self-ordained to pastor, but if you are divinely called to pastor and you say, this is it, I am done, God is done with me with pastoring, period, in any capacity, whether it be from a mentorship role or what have you, I believe that that's when God will take you home. And if God has not taken you home, then you were probably in the wrong position, even though you're claiming you were called.
Could that be frustration talking, Dr. Heather?
Huh?
Could that be frustration talking or burnout? It
could be, because here's the thing. What about a sabbatical? If you are a pastor and you're experiencing burnout, even if you're not aware, that's when you lean on what Bishop Wolliston is talking about. That's when your mentors or people who are in ministry who have more experience than you, they can have a conversation with you. And based on what your heart is saying through the spoken word coming out of your mouth, they can pick up on the signs that maybe you need a sabbatical. But when you're called by God to do a work, when God is done with you, he will take you home. He will put someone else in your position. If you're Elijah, he will bring Elisha. If you're Moses, he will bring on a Joshua. Let's stay in the word.
And that's wisdom, because as soon as Moses got to the place where he saw the promised land, guess what? He saw it, but did not go into it. God took him. Could God have saved him? Yes, he could have. But listen, his time was up. He had reached the promised land. He saw it, never entered it. God took him home. Amen. Pastor Mackenzie, how say you, sir?
Well, in terms of the sabbatical, Dr. Heather, there's some people that don't even believe in the power of the sabbatical, or the that a sabbatical should even be taken. They think to just keep pressing on. You know, God will make a way. God will see it through. No, we're gonna burn you. We're gonna burn ourselves out. So back to the question. If you're called and truly called, I agree with what both Bishop Wolliston and Dr. Heather said. I don't think that we can put in a termination date on when our work is done. We have not yet finished the course.
Talk to me.
And apparently we're not keeping the faith.
Well,
So henceforth, that crown may not be laid up for us.
You preach, my brother. You preach.
If we
You preach.
terminate before God says it's time to terminate. So
That's
I don't think we have the capacity. We are not God. And
Amen.
you never know what your next is. Sometimes we think we've accomplished all, and God's saying, this is just the beginning. I still have more for you to do. So I don't think we have the right to say when we are.
Amen.
Amen.
I asked that question, why? Because some of us, we make ministry look easy. Oh, yes, we do. You know, we have our big buildings. We are driving this and we are driving that. And when we stand up on Sundays in our suits or in our robes with our chain, our ring, and so forth, and with the golden microphone. Gold? Well,
yeah, that's a new one.
We make it look so easy, don't we? And so forth. So there are many, many people that try to be like us, aspire to be like a Bishop Ben or a Bishop Wolliston or a Pastor Richard Mackenzie, okay, or Dr. Heather Francis or Dr. Dolores Ben. They don't try to be like me because they'll be stupid to try to be like me. They try to be like all these great people. But you know it is not easy. I want to put the same question to Dr. Ben. Dr. Ben, when should a person decide that it's time to throw in the towel, give up on pastoring?
I think, and I see that as a cry for help. I am in total agreement with both Dr. Wolliston and Dr. Heather that they need a mentor. Some people don't know how to come and say, help me. I find myself in a pickle. I don't know where to go from here. So therefore, they see the cup, as it were, half empty. It's time to give up. I'm ready to throw in the towel. It's time for me to move on. That's where a mentor comes in. I see them, I hear that as a loud scream for help, because I do agree with Dr. Heather and Pastor Mackenzie. When your time is over, when your work is done, the next thing is transition.
Hallelujah.
You want to be transitioned. And if you're not ready to be transitioned, then your work is not done. So therefore, I think he's burnt out or she's burnt out, don't know where to turn. So that is their way of saying, help me.
Amen.
That is their way of saying, help me. Michelle, what would you say? That is their way of saying, help me. Do you concur?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Dr. Ben, for sure. Absolutely. We cannot have a positive disposition. We cannot look at possibilities when we're so overwhelmed and burned out. I mean, our lens is skewed. And so I think we need to remind people it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to talk to someone that you trust. It doesn't have to be a clinical physician. It can literally just be a friend that you trust, to talk to them and get your perspective back, get your grounding back. You know, it's so important to make sure you're making decisions from the right position.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, my dear. Thank you indeed. Okay, Michelle, I would like to put question number 3 to you. Okay, can you see how demonstrating good emotional well-being and mental health hygiene can positively influence your congregation to make their mental health a priority as well?
Yeah, honestly, I think that you are in such a important position, right? We have so many people across the country affected by this pandemic from an emotional and mental well-being perspective, and they're looking for leaders. They're looking for people to guide them. And if they see you and they see you as a good example, demonstrating that you took the time to step away, that you took what you needed so you could show up healthy, to Reverend Francis's point, you are looking like you are together. You're healthy, you're balanced. It is not selfish to take care of yourself. You represent hope when you show up that you do have it together. So I absolutely think you're in such a beautiful position to demonstrate what does good mental health look like as a busy pastor. If you can create that balance for yourself, you are going to lead through your good example.
Great. So let me put this question now to the panel. How do you get over to the people that you as a pastor, you do need time out?
I think, like Michelle said, Bishop, by example. By example. By example. You have to be willing to say it and do it. Say it. And it's not from a position of weakness, but it's from a position of understanding. And as I think it was Dr. Heather said, bring humanity to the pastorate. And that is such a beautiful thing. And I appreciate you, Doc, for saying that. Bringing humanity to the pastorate. Think about that, because we're supposed to be, in the eyes of her congregants, all things to all people. I had a baptism a few months ago, and I didn't go in the water, and people were like, well, you're supposed to baptize me. Well, did you get baptized? Did you get baptized? This ain't John the Baptist here now. Come on now. Did you get baptized? Yes. So to bring the humanity to it is most important, Bishop. So yeah, I think stepping aside, walking away for a couple of weeks or what have you, or Bishop, even being there and don't preach. Just sit, be fed. That speaks volumes.
Amen, amen. Okay, let's put that same question to Dr. Ben. Woman of God, how say you? How do you get over to the people that you too, as an individual, you need time out?
I agree with everybody else, leading by example, but because I'm also an educator, I believe in educating the congregation. There are times that people think the way they think because they don't know any better. So if we take the time to educate our congregation on the importance of balance, not only in the pastor's life, but in the life of the individual, and help them to see how important it is, then I think they can accept the change and change themselves. And in addition to that, you know how we as pastors love to have meetings? So you've got a meeting on top of a meeting, and you've got another meeting with a meeting. What about if we begin to, as Dr. Heather says, as we humanize ourselves before them, give grace to our congregants and say, hey guys, y'all need some family time. So instead of having this meeting every week, how about having it every 2 weeks? So therefore, you're teaching them that if I see the need that you need to spend time with your family, guess what? I need to spend time with my family. And it's okay to say that. So we can lead by example, and we can educate them on the importance.
Thank you much indeed. Wasn't it Elijah that said, Lord, enough is enough? I am fed up with this. Take my life. And sometimes when a pastor becomes suicidal, you have to question some things. What is it that's going on? Burnout? You reach a place where, like, you come home, you want to kick the dog? You've got to say, well, listen, enough is enough. I want to put the same question to Pastor Mackenzie. Man of God, how do you get over to the parishioners that you do need time out?
Sure. I agree with both Bishop and Dr. Ben as well. I think that we as pastors also have to have a level of transparency and just realness, and be honest, and it's not coming from, as Bishop said, a place of weakness. But I always tell everyone, one of your greatest strengths is your ability to understand and recognize your weaknesses as well. It's one of your greatest strengths. So if I feel like I need some time out, it's a strength of mine to understand that I need this time, and I can tell my parishioners, listen, X, Y, and Z, this is what needs to be done. So we have to be really just transparent and real. And I love what Dr. Ben just said about teaching the folks that this is something that's necessary across the board. We all need to take time off. We all need to reconnect sometimes. I'll say this, Valentine's Day this year fell on a Monday. And we had service Sunday, and it was announced to have Sunday evening service. I said, because most people are not going to be going out on a Monday evening. I said, Daddy, give the people the night off on the Sunday night, man. Let the people connect, let them get together. We have to really lead by example, because then we get to a place where we said, why is this one not talking to this one and this not working out with this one? Is because we're putting too much on their plates. We're expecting them to be in all these meetings alongside us. We need to give them time to also connect with each other as well. So yeah.
Let me just say this, son, that Bishop Mackenzie is a cool guy. He's a cool guy. I don't like him. I love the man. He's a cool guy. You know what I mean? He's a cool guy. Teaching is important.
Yeah.
And that is something that we must stress in our church. Sometimes we need to leave the tongues out, honestly, and get down to some good rock bottom teaching. Reverend Dr. Heather Francis, woman of God, how say you? How do you get over to the parishioners that you need time out?
Well, one of the things that I've noticed that we've had in most of our churches for many years is a pastor's aid committee, which is a support system or a group of people who have come together, who have decided that they want to support the pastor or pastors of that assembly. And I think that that responsibility should be taken very seriously, and they should actually be a part of the everyday goings on of the pastor. There should be some type of connection that, whether it be the president or the vice president or however the structure is laid out for that committee, for them to have that relationship with the pastor so that they know what the needs of the pastors are. That's their function. That's why they're there. And so I question why we put these committees together, because what I've noticed is that the focus is mainly to have one or two big events per year. But are you really supporting the pastors when your only focus is to communicate with them when you'd like to have that one dinner per year? So then you really are not a support system for the pastors. You're just a committee that has decided to come together once a year and plan that event. So you're not a support. And I think that their roles need to be more clearly defined. I believe that their roles should be even more spiritual than they are temporal, because yes, you should know the needs of your pastor, but you should also be in tune with your pastor to the point that you're praying for them. I believe that that committee should be a very praying committee that can also help to carry the pastors. And I think that should be their function. On another note, I think that there should be a reverential distance to pastors. Many times we're so close to our pastors, and with some people, they're able to decipher between you being my friend, the pastor, and you being my pastor, and me respecting and reverencing you. Because honestly, if I had Bishop Wolliston or Bishop Scott sitting in on a conversation or a meeting with maybe one of my parishioners that I'm very close to, the level of disrespect that they would show me, they would not show that same level of disrespect to either of the bishops. Why? Because familiarity breeds contempt. And unfortunately, when we get too close to our parishioners, that reverential distance has been compromised, and the lack of respect then becomes apparent, and it is not healthy for the relationship. So even though bigger churches, yes, they do have that distance, but if you think about it, it's done for a reason, because some cultures are very disrespectful to their pastors who have fasted, prayed, spent time in the word, given of themselves, given of their money, given of their time, and yet someone will come along and blatantly disrespect them, not show them the grace, and it is not healthy.
Mm-hmm. Well said indeed. Michelle, let me ask you the same question. How do you get it over to the people that you do need time out? You're a person just like them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. You know, I recently was fortunate to partner with a pastor who wanted to open up this entire conversation in his church. And it was really kind of cool to see him do a mental health sermon series, not only for awareness that you know, him and his other leaders could benefit from some compassion and empathy, but so many people in the world are struggling right now. Sorry. So it's organically perceived as a safe place. You know, where are we talking about mental health? We don't want to talk about it at work. There's hesitancy. Let's talk about that. That's like, I don't want anyone to know if I'm struggling, but it seems as though it could be a very safe environment to open up the conversation about mental health and burnout. And then everyone will be on the same page. And when the pastor asks for, I just need some time, everyone will understand, because you've initiated a conversation about it, and then there's more empathy and compassion in that space.
Now, that sounds good, but let me put something to the panel. Most of us that are on tonight know what it is to sit in the congregation, and then after a period of time, we're exalted to pastor, pastor's wife, whatever. Now, the first time that you took a break from church on a Sunday, I'm sure that most of us felt a little guilty.
A lot.
Felt really, really guilty.
Yes.
Now, the question is, how can you take a break without really feeling guilty? How can you really take a break without feeling guilty? Because listen, I think I'm the oldest. No, let me not say that. But the thing is, like, whenever I do take a break, because most of my breaks that I take, I'm out preaching. Next month, I'll be in Trinidad preaching at a nice sized church and so forth, and so on. And I may be just away for a couple of days. And yet I do feel a little bit of guilt. I'm being honest with you. I may take a 2 week, well, not 2 weeks, but an 8-day vacation with my family. I do feel a little bit of guilt. I'm being honest with you. I am just putting my cards on the table. I do feel a little guilty. The question is, how can I really take a break without feeling the way I feel? Talk to me. Please help me. I need help.
Well, Bishop, I think if we're all honest, we've been there or probably still there. I am not. When I go away, I leave people in charge. I leave everything said. I don't look back. I'm good. Don't talk to me. Don't call me. I'm not calling you. But I think the first couple of times you do that, yeah, you do feel a little guilty, disconnected. But I think Michelle or Dr. Heather mentioned, it's realizing that this is self-care. This is self-care. So Bishop, you're going away to Trinidad. I understand that. But don't tell me you're not going to take a couple hours at the beach or relax someplace, you're definitely going to be drinking coconut water, just like I do. Come on, you've got to do that. So that's a part of it. Even though you're on assignment, you're still taking care of yourself, and that's important.
That's important. Thank you much, man of God. I feel much better. Dr. Ben, how say
I'll
you?
give you my cash app, Bishop.
I do concur. I remember the very first time Bishop Ben and I went on vacation, and it was over the weekend. The Sunday, we were on the beach. We both looked at the time. We said, okay, they're singing song service by now. They're doing praise and worship. Okay, at this time, they're getting up to preach. And it was only at around 12:30, 1 o'clock, they said, okay, church is over. And you felt the relief. But you know what? We did feel guilty, even though we felt the need for self-care. But as we began to condition our minds, if I don't take care of myself, then I can't take care of you. So therefore, as we began to say that, I've got to be healthy so that I can help you. And so now I do miss them. I am going to be honest, but truthfully, I long for the vacations. And when I go, as Bishop Wolliston says, we put good people in charge that, you know, when you come back, you've got a church, you know, we go, we de-stress, and then you come back. So therefore, it was tough the first couple of times, but we continue to speak to ourselves so that, you know, it's all right. It's okay to take a break. This is for me. I got to be healthy to ensure your health.
Amen. Beautifully said. Okay, Pastor Mackenzie, man of God, how say you?
Bishop, I'm still in the same boat as you.
You got to get out that boat, man.
I'm still in the same boat, man. I'll plan vacations and I'll leave like the Sunday night or the Monday, and I'm right back on the Saturday saying that I can't miss Sunday. I bring my iPad with me on vacation. I mean, I'm still working on it. I'm working on it. But it's like missing a Sunday is like, if you're sitting there like, oh, Lord, don't come right now. Don't come right now. Don't let the rapture come and find me not in the church. But I'm working on it, Bishop. We'll work on it together.
Pastor Mackenzie, you know what got me out of that? Not that my wife was complaining when I go away with the iPad. I said to myself, it's not fair to her.
Yeah.
It's really not fair to her. We're away, but it's like, I'm still back here, but we're away. But I'm still back here. I got the iPad. I got the Bible. Nothing wrong with the Bible, iPad. But I'm still here at church, but I'm with her. Am I really, really with her? And so I said, I'm not doing this anymore, because when I look at it, it's not fair to her. It really isn't. So maybe that can help you.
Bishop Wolliston, don't forget that the church is also known as a woman. So when you take your wife with you and you have your mind on another woman,
that could be a problem. That could be a problem.
Pastor Heather Francis, woman of God, how say you?
Well, I'm going to give you guys a different spin on it. I'm going to say that when you cannot make it to church, my mindset has changed since the passing of my dad, the late Bishop Dr. Walter Francis, because I realized the reality of the church, or the truth of the church. The church is made up of people who come, people who go, some who stay, some who leave, until Jesus Christ comes back and meets the church and we are raptured in the air. The church will still be in existence. And when my father passed away, it was a huge reality check for me. We were not given the grace to grieve. Church was supposed to go on regardless, as to the fact that this man who preached for over 40 years stood in the pulpit almost every single Sunday and preached his heart out. People just wanted church to continue the same way. And how dare we try to miss a Sunday?
Wow.
So that changed my mindset. And it taught me that whether you are there or not, church will go on.
On this rock.
If you die tomorrow, if I leave this world tomorrow, the church will go on, because the church is not founded on Dr. Heather Francis. The church is not founded on Bishop Dr. Herbert Scott, but it is founded on Jesus Christ. And on this rock will I build my church. And guess what? No matter whether I'm here or he's here or you're here or anyone else is here, worship and praise will still go on.
Amen.
Somebody in the congregation will get up and gladly preach a message when you leave. Yes, they will. As a matter of fact, some of them are waiting for some of us to leave so that they can stand up and preach a message, despite the fact that you are called to pastor. Because they can preach, they think they should have your position. And so, come on. And so because of that experience that I went through, it changed my mindset. So if I can't make it to church, and if I have to take care of my daughter, which I've done recently, if she was in the hospital not feeling well, and I have to stay home and take care of her, church is still going to go on. And I have to do what I have to do for my family, and I'll be at church next Sunday.
The family before the church.
Amen to that. And that's something that we should all remember, that no matter what, the family did come before the church.
Yes.
Okay, Michelle, how say you? How do we get over to the parishioners that we as pastors, we do need a break?
Talk about it. Don't hide it. Don't act like you're ashamed that you need to step away, that you're weak. You're not weak. You're human beings, like I think we take on too much, and forgive me, I'm not in your role. I don't know the burdens that you carry every day, but I will say that when we don't talk about it, it feels shameful, and you shouldn't have any shame. You want to show up for those you love, the people that are looking up to you. You need to do that. So I think there's a beauty in being vulnerable and being authentic and just saying, I need a minute. I need some time. Let me regroup so I can come back and serve you the way I know I can serve you.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. Even Jesus Christ in his earthly ministry, in his humanity said, if it be possible, Lord, let this cup pass. Let this cup pass. And he could have kept that in without saying it. He verbalized it. If it be possible, let this cup pass. Well, we have approximately 4 minutes left before we sign off. We've heard a lot and we have said a lot. What should we really take away from this conversation tonight? Bishop Neville Wolliston, what should we take away?
Bishop Scott, I'm going to borrow one of Dr. Heather's phrase of one of her speech there. She said that we should the parishioners should understand that the pastor is also human. So bring back humanity to the pastorate. And I think that's big. Beautiful.
Pastor Richard McKenzie.
That I take from tonight is that burnout is real, and we have to be diligent about taking care of ourselves as just much as we want to take care of others.
Beautiful. Okay, Dr. Dolores Ben.
I'm going to take the words that Michelle says. Tend to the garden of your mental health every day. I like that. I'm going to stick with that.
I like it too. That's good preaching material. Thank you very much. Okay, Pastor Heather Francis, woman of God.
Amen. I would say, pastors, we need you. We love you. And if you take care of yourself, your body keeps score of what's going on in your mind, and stress does affect your pastoring. So take care of you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, Michelle Dickinson.
Give yourself grace.
Okay, give yourself grace. Okay, that favor, definitely we need it. Let me say this, that we've heard a lot and we have said a lot tonight. And I believe that as pastors, every now and then, we need to step out of the boat. Just step out of the boat and be a little different. Just step out of the boat. It was Christ that said to Simon Peter, come. And every now and then we need just to step out and experience something that we have never, ever experienced before. Don't you dare be ashamed or afraid every now and then to just step out. Well, this is Bishop Scott from the Bishop's Corner saying thank you everyone for weighing in. And please, after we have finished, please stay online because we do have the question and answer session. Okay, God bless you. Thank God for the panel that came on tonight. Thank God for Dr. Heather Francis. Thank God for Dr. Ben. Thank God for Bishop Neville Wolliston. Thank God for Pastor Richard McKenzie and our special guest tonight, Michelle Dickinson. Thank you for your wisdom, your knowledge, and your understanding. This is Bishop Scott saying good night from the Bishop's Corner. See you next week, same time. Bye-bye now.